Hello, heathens.
Hello, Heathens.
How's everybody? Good.
I am well. I am well. I am well. I'm
We're
well.
good.
I'm well.
We are on our last episode of the Seven Deadly Sins, and it's been a journey just through this little section.
Now it's very interesting because I really think it's not the fact that we take it all the way of being very dramatic about like this is a sin and I'm going to hell. And what I've really kind of cumulated the whole thing. I don't even know if that's a word, but I just made it up. The whole thing to me is really instruction of life to be like, if you do this, you're either going to be uncomfortable to the point, and if you keep doing it past uncomfortability, then you're going to die. And I really think that that's probably more it than it's a sin and you're going to hell. You know,
Right.
they had to use dramatics back then.
Well, yeah.
They had to tell stories. Like a lot of the stuff wasn't written down. They didn't have doctors on every on my computer. They didn't have doctors to be like, well, study shows, they didn't have that shit.
Well, and life was way more dramatic anyways.
Oh, absolutely.
We live pretty cushy.
We live really cushy. If you think about we don't have a dirt floor. My
Right.
house is not made out of mud, which wouldn't be a bad thing, but I'm pretty sure leaks were probably a thing, I'm sure, right?
And we talk about it a
Um,
lot. Food.
food was scarce.
And scary to you. For me now in this day and age, I can just go and buy my food. I don't have to go and acquire it
Acquire it.
and clean it and make it myself and do all
Grow
of it.
it, grow it.
Yeah,
If you could do that,
right,
slaughter your own stuff.
right.
It was hard.
Drama was real back then.
It was real. And then not only that, think about sanitary stuff.
Oh
Your
yeah,
food was old or because think of the lifespan of food, right? I bet you they ate a lot of food that was like what we would consider gross.
right.
I get to the point where I'm like, ew, there's a bruise on my apple. I don't want that apple. It's bad.
Yeah. Or you cut off the like brown part of the banana.
Oh yeah, no, if the banana is too mushy, I'm done. I can't.
Yeah, same.
It's a texture thing. Ugh.
See,
Mm.
but that right there. Of course, life was dramatic. They had to make everything was too much. We won't eat mushy bananas because
I
it's
know.
texture. They didn't have the choice in textures.
No, they did not.
They said, this water soup with some potatoes in it. Sure, I'll eat that.
It's great. Thank you so much. It tastes so good.
Yeah, this is great.
Yeah,
Dry bread,
dried bread.
phenomenal. Delicacy.
Absolutely. This crouton is amazing. Or in the Lord of the Rings when they ate the elven bread and the Hobbit's like, I ate three of them. Like one small morsel can save a man for I don't know how many days, but he's like, oh.
Uh-huh. Am I good for life?
Oh.
So
So we
yeah,
should we start with gluttony first since we're talking about food?
sure.
All right.
Gluttony. I know, I'm sure we all kind of have an idea of what gluttony is, but I just want to say this because this is one of my weird things. I like the word.
Gluttony?
Yeah, I don't know. I like the way you form it with your mouth. Gluttony.
Gluttony.
Gluttony. Hmm.
Gluttony. It's a good word.
It's a good word, right?
Hmm.
Feels good saying it.
But it's so tied up with a negative connotation that it's weird to say that it's a good word.
That's what I was trying to thank you because I was trying to get to that because I'm like, I know it sounds weird because it
Yeah.
is. It's just not a great meaning.
Association.
Yes, there.
Yes. Oh,
Like the word, I like it.
I like it.
I like
I
it.
like it.
All right, Nicole, give it to us, baby.
All right. Well, what I got in gluttony. Now, gluttony was one of those ones that's very weird because it's, like with chastity, you can stay a virgin. It's a clear cut like thing, right? Where like gluttony, you still need to like eat to live. So it makes it like when you're talking about overconsumption of food, basically. Because we can overconsume on a lot of things, like buying too much, drinking too much. It doesn't have to really pertain with food. It's an over access of material items, I believe.
Yeah.
Um, Now back in the day, uh, they it was really more of the fact that the more you ate, the less you prayed. So it was a separation of like from God. Um, One of the things that was said was that as fog conceals the ray of sun, so heavy consumption of food darkens the mind. And this is why a lot of like places practice fasting food, especially I think the most common is Islamic faith that does, oh, what is that called?
Ramadan.
Ramadan, yeah. So they do this fasting so that gluttony doesn't take over their life. They remind themselves, and they do it from sun up to sundown, where they cannot consume food. They can drink water.
Yeah, and I think they can also, some people from people that I know that practice Ramadan, so I do not know that if this is a full practice for the entirety of everybody. So don't quote me on this, peeps. But I think that after a certain time, they can have water and eat dates. I think it is.
Okay, okay.
Yeah. Or at least that's people that I know have done that.
Well, yeah, I'm sure, if you were sick or something like that, there had to be something that you could do. They wouldn't want you to die because of this practice, right? Like
Right.
that's not the goal. The goal is to not have it have such a control over your life that you
Exactly.
controlled food and consumption and moderation.
Yes.
Um, so the problem with this is where we get the contradictory and gluttony. And I feel like this is one of the ones that like really does have this controversy like status. Primitive cultures celebrated mass consumption of food in the way of like showing their wealth, their health, and their fertility. So like big bellies, big amounts of food, big like consumptions and parties and stuff like that. They talked about how this was a show of their like wealth, which we can see that this would be more representing and celebrating matter and physical things on earth, where like spirit, you need to do less of these things so that you're closer to spirit. Like your body is more pure and not, I'm going to say tainted, but I don't mean it in necessarily like a poisonous way. Like tainted, like you have food on you, you have material. It's earthly material. That's why after a spiritual practice, you always ground. Like when witches have a full ceremony and ritual, they always eat afterwards. It's to ground them back in their bodies and bring them back down from spirit and into the earthly planes. It's a way to connect with your body. Um, so in Greek Roman tradition, the vice and virtue, classic Greeks worship a fit and tone body. At the same time, though, they partook in pleasures of the palate and expansive with the expansion of Roman Empire, there was a lot of variety of uh hold on, I know this word. Exotic, there we go. Exotic and decadent food. So they too would host these lavish like banquets and stuff. And with the Greeks, it was more, or even the Roman empires, again, it was this way of showing that they have obtained wealth. They are um like to the point they would actually have like vomit rooms. They would eat
Oh,
so much that they would go and vomit so they can come back and do it again.
well, how bizarre.
I know.
That's bizarre to me.
And like, see, this is the thing, is this is why gluttony is also a very like a sin, is because the more you take the food that you take, you're taking away from the poor and the people that don't have it because you're consuming it all. And like that was really one of the things that's very selfish to do that because there were people out there starving and there was people out there like it's a whole gluttonous kind of thing.
Yeah, I feel like this goes along with what you're saying too, because Pope Francis is quoted saying food is ceasing to be a means of subsistence and turning into an avenue of personal destruction. And he
Hmm.
blamed like unjust economic practices as well as lifestyle habits. And he named the virtues of temperance, moderation, abstinence, self-control, and
Temperance.
solidarity as the way to combat what he called nutritional disorders.
Yeah, yeah.
I was like, oh my God, he's so right in that way. That food it's not just sustenance anymore.
Mm-mm.
And it can be. It's like it also I feel like do you feel like pride goes along with this very well?
Oh, absolutely. Before I started working out, and I had to fight pride a lot of the times because like I wouldn't go and eat a salad because a salad was associated with being fat and overweight, and
Mm,
I'm dieting, right? So now I have to actually like not only realize that I have like an imbalance in my body, but now I am like this sad little girl that has to like eat the salad. And
yeah.
you actually helped me with this is that like you when we would go out to eat, you would always get a salad and you were like, "Oh, this is so like this is my roughage." And like this is and I really enjoyed having a salad. Like you taught me how to like instead of associating like a salad with these negative connotation, it was now associated with like these good connotations of like this is what it does for my body and this is what I'm doing and blah blah blah. So it was very cool to like have that kind of switch in my brain. But pride is a huge one. Like going to the gym is a
Yeah,
huge one because if I go to the gym, I'm admitting that I'm out of shape
right.
because I wouldn't go to the gym if I was in shape.
Right.
Right? Like yeah.
Which we're learning through, you see it a lot in TikTok and like in the like Ethernet too, of like people that are like what could be considered by society standards as like overweight who are strong as fucking hell. They're
Right, right.
dancing. I can't move like that.
Right?
I'm like, I don't know, a lot of people that are considered skinny or a great weight, quote unquote, by society that can do the things that people that are they're also considering overweight do the same thing that they're doing.
Absolutely. Absolutely. In
Nice to
fact,
see the switch.
well, and that's the kind of nice thing is in my brain, it's switched to, the fact that I had somebody come into my suite just recently and really opened my eyes to this, and I was very grateful for it actually. And not at first though. And we're talking, and she's like, well, I said something about, oh yeah, I swam today or whatever. And she's like, oh, you're still doing that? I was like, yeah. I go, actually, at the end of November, it'll be a full year. And she goes, have you noticed a difference? And I was like, first I was like, you bitch.
Mhm.
But then I was like, actually, the biggest difference that I known or seen is my mental health is the first and foremost because I don't want to kill you right now. And I didn't say that part, but
But you thought it.
I thought it. And then I go, second of all, I go, I'm not doing this to be skinny. I'm doing this so I can pick myself off the fucking floor when I'm 92.
Right.
I go, third of all, who am I going to have sex with? I got one guy. right? Like he's it, and he's already seen all of it. So I go third of all because I was on a roll. I was like, you don't think I can get a man like this
Right.
if he dies and I want another man like this? Like, you don't think I can get another man? And I go third or fourth, what, fifth? What am I on? I don't know. I don't even know anymore. I go, I go fifth of all, fourth of all. Are you not going to talk to me because I'm this size?
Right.
Right? Because that's what you're saying ultimately to me, right? And of course she was like, no, no, no. And I was like, then what do I need to be skinny for? I've checked the boxes. I'm doing good at my food consumption. I'm doing exercise 5 days a week. I am doing my spiritual practice. What more do you want from, you know what I mean? And all of that, because I've checked all my boxes, I'm confident that whatever my body looks like right now is the way it's supposed to look.
Right.
And that's the twist that we like are, it's this whole thing of like this body image that we're supposed to have because that's the only way. It's gross because like it's this one thing that we're telling women that we're only, and I hate to get on this platform, but like you're only worth being young and being skinny.
Hmm.
Nobody's gonna want you if you're not those two things, right? Like I should have died at 35 because I have no use after that.
Yeah, I got 4 more years.
Right, exactly. So live them up, girl. Live them up because you'll be put out to pasture after that. You have nowhere. And and we fall for it. We fall for this thing. So like, after, a certain age, even before that, we start to do things like get the latest diet or get the latest shapewear or pill or like we would we would rather take the consequences of a certain drug or substance than be fat. And that says fucking a lot.
Yeah, and it's like, at that point, we're not saying that it's a you want to do stuff to your body like that, then by all means do it. But it's the reason behind why you're doing it that we're
Yeah.
pointing out. Because the thing is what I realized. Now, granted, I'm only 31, but we also Nicole and I both grew up in an age where you had to be a size 00 with your pants hanging off your hips if you were gonna look good. That's what the beauty standard was when we were young. Like
Yep.
I remember in my teen, that would have been your like mid 20s. That
Right.
was what was considered pretty. I mean,
Yeah.
Victoria's Secret angels and Britney Spears,
Yeah.
huge
Yeah.
icon for me, loved her, was
Yeah.
tiny. And then like I remember how they would come after her when she was in a bathing suit and she had a little tiny, she
Just
had a
a little.
centimeter of pudge, fat
Yeah.
shame. And it was like
Yeah.
that kind of stuff sticks with you and you really have to fight it. And the thing I think that is helpful is when you do start really realizing it and you're like, wow, I'm not happy when I'm smaller. I'm not happy when I'm bigger. I'm not happy when I'm in between. I'm never happy with my body. That right there, when you start realizing that, that's when you can start kicking it out and start really like changing the intentions.
Absolutely. Absolutely. It's the acknowledgement of what you're doing to yourself that is really the kicker, right? Like, because you don't even like. I know it took me a long time to see that I even have body dysmorphia.
Yeah.
It wasn't even until I started losing weight that I was like, my body looks the same. And then you go down that whole thing of like, what am I doing this for?
Mm-hmm.
And really, that was the biggest thing is because I know how my brain was before I started exercising, because I was doing magic, because I was doing this transformation work, I was meditating and doing all this stuff, really knowing about this space up here, this uncharted territory, that when I did start swimming, that gremlin inside there is tired. And
Yeah.
he doesn't wreck the room anymore.
Mm-hmm.
He's like, we're gonna let that pass.
Yep.
Right. So I go out and I like exercise my demons so it doesn't wreck the room.
Right.
Because that's what like anxiety, like I notice, and I don't know if this is not true for everybody, and I'm not a fucking doctor, and like that's just my opinion. And I'm telling you, with anxiety, if you run until you're tired, it will give you the best, like your brain's quiet. I haven't had a brain, I haven't had a quiet brain in a long time. Now, because I love it so much, because I love the clarity and the quietness, that's the motivation that gets me up at 7 o'clock in the morning and go do it. I don't want to do it. My skin is like dry and I have to put oil on it all the time. My hair has chlorine in it. Like, there's a lot of stuff that I have to put up with, but my mind is so good
Yeah.
most of the time.
Most of the time, which come on, let's be honest. It's not gonna be good 24/7, but
No, no, it's not always going to be, but it does help me. It does help me really to ground throughout the day and not get overexcited about stuff. And like, I realize at the end of the day that like, it's fine.
right.
I'm going to live another day. It didn't kill me.
Yep.
And that's really, and I don't know how we got off on this. It's fine.
Well, I do. I have something for that because I was thinking about that because your brain has many things in it at once. This just goes to show how these topics go into so much more because we've been talking about the overconsumption and how also when it comes to like food and pride and like pride being in with gluttony and all this, it just shows how expansive these topics can really get.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And how
Because
they all are interconnected with each other too.
yeah, exactly.
Pride and gluttony and like.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Really quick though, I did look up that I wanted to add to your fasting bit because I was curious while you were talking about that, like the actual like what they're saying medically the benefits are, because I like to have everything
Yeah,
presented.
yeah. Yeah, yeah.
On WebMD, which normally we would say don't WebMD it, but this was a good one. So, it says when you fast, your body has less toxic materials flowing through the blood and lymphatic system, making it easier for you to think. While fasting, the energy you'd normally use to digest food is available to be used by the brain. And you likely won't notice the mental change until the first few days of fasting, uh, because your body takes time to adjust.
Yeah.
So then, after your body clears itself of toxins, your brain has access to a cleaner blood system, resulting in clearer thoughts, better memory, and increased sharpness of your senses. Um, there's a better healing rejuvenation. So fasting puts your body through a rejuvenation experience, and it dissolves diseased cells, living only in in healthy tissue, or leaving only healthy tissue. And then there's also a noticeable redistribution of nutrients in the body. So the body hangs on to precious vitamins and minerals while processing and getting rid of old tissue toxins or undesirable materials. And then with all of that too, you're getting an increased willpower because choosing to fast requires mental strength and the ability to resist that short-term gratification to pursue
Hmm.
those long-term goals. So when you choose to participate in such a challenging exercise and succeed, you'll likely experience enormous gratification and a renewed sense of accomplishment.
Wow, that's amazing. And this is the way we can see, like, they were talking about because this kind of stuff was not in the Bible, right? Like, but it was
Right.
associated with the Bible. But you can see why the concern for the people was to make them with these seven, you know, attribute or like these sins. I don't know how they can actually lead you to not feel good about yourself, not, into depression, into you know, into even like making your body like have a heart attack or gout or like just have these uncomfortable things happen to you. And even though like we've separated science from spirituality, this is back when both of those kind of went together, right? Like you kind of went together with it. And it's kind of cool to see that WebMD and gluttony, you can see how it goes together and why. gluttony is bad, right? Like from a science point of view, instead of just a like, I don't know.
Spiritual, I guess you could say.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, and like by fasting, it can be so beneficial. Sit fasting.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I didn't know that. Because, you hear about fasting. Fasting was a fad for a while too, because of course it went from something spiritual to something that was like the new cool thing to do.
Right.
And it's also been like a diet fad. But it's not something that people do regularly. Some sure they do. But it's like going on a keto diet or this diet or that diet. It was something to make you skinny. It wasn't something that I knew was supposed to help you with like clearing toxins out of your body. That's fucking
Right.
cool. Didn't
That's
know that.
awesome. No. Or even like cleans your blood. The fact that they just said it cleans your blood and you have clear blood that like flows to your brain and then you can think better. I was like, what?
Yeah, that's it. I'm fasting.
That's it. I'm fasting.
That's it. I'm fasting.
Oh, my love of food. Oh no. Which is it's kind of interesting because like you almost think like as soon as I like think that I'm gonna fast, it's almost like you're like, I'm never gonna eat again.
Yes.
And it's like, okay, calm down.
Yeah. It's almost like one of those things where you can try to look at it in the way of like, I love food so much, I'm going to take a break and then I'm going to love it again.
Yeah,
I'm going to love it
yeah.
even more because I haven't had it in a minute.
Well, it's almost honoring it and making it more spiritual because you're um not just like I think if you continuously do something, it loses the sacredness or the specialness of it, right?
Oh, yeah.
And in this, I hate to say it like this, in this day and age,
In this day and
um,
age.
we can get anything we want like that, right? Like if I want something, I can literally get it off Amazon and have it delivered today.
Right.
Or I can go to the store, or I can even have it prepared for me, right? I can go to the restaurant, I can order on DoorDash, I can have it brought to me. Like this access of trying of getting things instantly is ruining what is special in our lives. And at some point you kind of realize that like um that it's not really the thing that you're getting. It's actually how special it is that makes you feel good. So
Right.
we're losing this specialness because we're not holding any kind of um resistance, or is that the word I want? Resistance, not resistance.
Resentment?
No.
Free.
It's almost like if you fast, you're gonna fast for this long to this long, right? So it's like this delayed gratification, maybe. It might be the best word for it. It's the delaying the gratification. So like, okay, so this is sorry about your guys' luck. So it's like having sex. Now, there's points of sex of like wham bam, thank you, ma'am, and that's it, right? And that's not for me, that's not really enjoyable, right? Like that was like it was over before it even started.
Hmm.
So like foreplay and all that would be like the gradual build up, the delayed satisfaction of the end work. Or even like romance when you start to like date somebody you haven't had sex yet. Like this like build up of like, oh, we're going to, but like not yet because like we don't know or whatever. And like once it happens, then it's like so much more gratifying than like we meet, we have sex, and that's it. Right? Like it's this and that's what we're losing by having everything like handed to us all the time. Does that make sense?
It does. I'm sorry. What's bothering me is I know the fucking word we want for this. And I
It's
can't.
right there.
It's fuzzy. It's like fuzz. And I
It's
can't pick it
fuzzy.
out.
It's because I ate. I didn't fast.
It's gonna bother me.
Okay. So back to what are we, okay, so Jesus, this they do talk about fasting and about gluttony a little bit because gluttony, we have to remember that gluttony was originally not the overindulgence of food. It was originally uh food against fasting because fasting and praying go to hand in hand
Mhm.
because you get closer to spirit that way. Um, so Jesus said, by bread alone does man live, but by every word that comes out of his mouth, wait, hold on, I'm not reading that right. No, no, by bread. Okay, so wait. By bread alone, man does does not live, but also by every word that comes from his mouth, from the mouth of God. So not only do you live by feeding, but also by the words of God. So the idea of making a decision between what goes in your mouth and what comes out of your mouth is very important.
Basically talking about a physical and spiritual death or life.
Right.
Mhm.
Okay, so the excess of being preoccupied of this carnal pleasure, such as eating and drinking, is what makes us less human and more animal-like. So that's the other reason why they wanted to like control their consumption because of it makes you more animal-like.
Mm.
It makes you react instead of um control and think about what you're doing.
Which we now know.
We now know.
We now know.
Hmm. Um, Eating too much is theft from the poor and hungry. Um, so in Dante's Divine Comedy, gluttony lives in the third circle of hell. Um, so when we talked about no, is that sloth? That's sloth. Oh, so sorry. I got my sins mixed up.
You're okay.
Um, so gluttony is frozen wasteland. Um, a stinking slosh, while Cyrus, the three-headed Cain, is guarding the sinners who are howling like caged dogs in the filth and cruelty weather, symbolizing the waste that gluttony has made of itself. Yes.
Yes.
Yes. So don't do it. That's what I'm saying.
Uh, is that what you have for gluttony?
Yes.
The only things I have to add is it's countered with the heavenly virtue of temperance, which,
Which is balance.
thank you, yes, I did have to look it up because I was like, okay, I know temperance the card, but like, is that the same? And it says temperance is a moral virtue that moderates the attraction of pleasures and provides balance in the use of created goods. So essentially, it
Hmm.
is like control of having like a good balance of not going gluttonous, but then not going with nothing.
Right. Right.
Um, so there was this thing I found that I was like, I feel like it's all kind of like it just Thomas Aquinas, he's the one that made all these, right? He
Hmm.
specifies 5 ways in which gluttony can present itself in one's behavior, and I felt like this all sounded the same to me, but I wanted to hear what you thought. So the first one's hastily by eating or drinking too rapidly or at the inappropriate time.
Hmm.
The second one is sumptuously by eating or drinking rich or expensive fare over healthier or more moderate fare. The third one's excessively by eating or drinking too much, greedily by eating or drinking too eagerly and refusing to share, and then daintily by eating food that is dainty in quality or excessively prepared.
Yeah, I saw that too.
I was like, I don't understand the last one. Daintily, by eating food that is dainty in quality or excessively prepared.
Well, because you're taking the luxury of um you're putting so much emphasis on
Oh,
the food itself.
okay.
It's
Yeah.
the over like preparedness of, when you go to the I'm such a heathen. When you go to these like fancy restaurants and you get like little like you're like this
But
costs
like, here's your entree.
$75.
Yeah.
Right, exactly. So not only am I eating, I'm spending gluttonous amount of money to have this food prepared for me, but then I'm overindulging in this like trinket or whatever. Like it's
Yeah.
not it's not appropriate really. It's not balanced. It's this yeah.
I mean, that makes a lot of sense because when you think about the way you'd feel after getting a quarter-sized meal that you're paying $250 for, that's been taking you, it took an hour for them to make it, you're annoyed, you're gonna probably feel regret, and you're probably not gonna be happy that you paid $200 for this little tiny piece of food.
Hmm.
And now you gotta
And
go grab fast food because you're hungry.
well, exactly. And think about it. Like even if you had the means to like actually live this way, it's this money could really go to charity and help people out to get their own food than you spending it on, this what we've called value or even like this, like it separates me from the common folk at that point, right? Like, which I get, like we in America, that's what we do here, right? Like you're supposed to climb the mountain and be successful and like, you know, rich is what we want. Like wealth is what if I am not made $1 million, I am not worth it or I
Yeah,
have failed. So it's a way to kind of be like, I've made it kind of thing. Right.
right.
And like, I can spend this money on this much food because I can go eat more stuff later. This is an experience. I love that one.
Oh yeah,
Like, it's just an experience.
yeah,
So it's one of those things where like we really have to think about like being not it's not like being simple as a punishment. It's the fact that you can leave food for other people to buy it or to like even if you were like, okay, like I'm gonna the give money to the poor so they can eat. So then you're balancing out these things. And that's really what it's all about. It's just about balance. It'll
yeah,
make you feel better because not only are you taking your access and giving it to somebody that didn't have it, but you are also not overindulging or overtaking or stealing from that somebody else, like the whole toilet paper thing, right?
right.
That was a gluttonous move right there. It
Yeah,
was access, right? And granted, it was by fear, and I get it, but you're not leaving it for the other people that might need it. You're taking it all for yourself, and it's very selfish that way, right? Like, because then people don't have underwear. I mean, toilet
toilet
paper.
paper.
Um, that's all I got. I don't know.
Yeah, that's all I got too. I did
Okay.
see somewhere that said it'll be punished in hell by being force fed. And there's like this painting that explained that where it was just like in the 16th century there was a Flemish artist that painted gula, Gula. I want to say goulash. Um
Goulash.
it's depicted in a nightmare scene that includes a woman guzzling from a pitcher while sitting atop a pig as demons and nude women eat around her and drink to excess. And then it also shows like figures vomiting or being force fed. So it's supposed to
Hmm.
help depict like what that looks like. It was a pretty cool painting if those that I know like when we talk about stuff that we like to see if you want to look it up. It's Gula, Gula.
Yeah, and they usually put these behind the priest while he's like doing his sermon. so that
Mm.
people can be reminded of like what gluttony looks like or what the sin looks like,
Ugh,
just to get them not to do it, really.
right. Yeah, that's what I would think we encompassed. Bleep, bleep, bleep. I think
Little,
we've
little, little.
encompassed gluttony. So let's move on to sloth, our
Um,
last sin.
our last sin.
Our last sin.
Okay, sloth. Sloth is can be really translated and broken down to two things: apathy and sadness.
Mm.
I know sadness was a feeling of loss, like grief, and wanting it to be in this world and not the other. Apathy, I'm not quite sure what the definition is.
Um,
I'm going to need you to look it up.
is lack of interest, emotion, feeling, concern, or passion. It's a state of indifference or is a suppression of emotions such as concern, excitement, motivation, or passion.
So the sin of sloth, um, so back in the day, if you were not motivated to prepare for the winter and you just lazily, in the summer, just lazily around, then that most likely would mean that either you or your family would die of starvation or with no shelter or, anything that you needed to do preparing for the winter coming, right?
Yeah.
And that was really, it was, it was being prepared for the hard times to come. So being slothly, it would mean certain death, really, for not only just you, but for other people around you.
Right.
They called this the most insidious sin because sloth is one of those things that comes in gradually, and then all of a sudden it takes over everything. Like insidious means gradually and secretly causing harm. This is the most common meaning for something insidiously slow, sub I'm gonna have to s- 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 it's spelled different than it the way I say it in my head. Subtle, like subtly. What, how do you say subtle, but subtly? There we go.
She got
I'm
it.
like, how do you say it? Um, Works into a situation often without being noticed until the damage is done. For example, a disease can be insidious if it develops slowly and without obvious symptoms. So sloth is one of those things that they said that is insidious. So it doesn't start as like, oh, I ate all this. So like gluttony is like easy because it's like, if I eat this much, it's fine. If I eat this much, it's not fine because my body hurts or whatever. Where like sloth comes in and it starts off as, especially in this day and age, it's would really be called rot. So rot comes in because you're sitting there and you're like, I deserve a break. So I'm gonna sit here on my phone and, scroll. And at first you start scrolling and you're like, ah, I learned that and I did that and this was really good. And then all of a sudden the dopamine runs out and then you're like doom scrolling. And you can see how it goes from in one session, it can go from uh like I feel like I'm having a purpose to now I'm not even watching the videos that I'm literally scrolling through. So you can see how it starts off and then comes in and controls everything. And also you've just wasted 3 hours of your life, you know, not doing anything,
Right.
which like I do honor it sometimes and be like, all right, this is kind of just what it's been a lot. It's been kind of heavy and I need to sit on my phone. But I noticed that there's a moment where like I'm getting energy and then it switches where I can feel my energy draining into the phone or whatever. Like I can feel it go this way instead of doing this way. And I think that's where we need to like acknowledge where we need to like, I need to get off. I need to do something with my life. I need to stand up. I need to, like I needed to go do something. Um, Sloth can be self-pity and grief. Uh, Sloth lets all of the poverty and injustice exist because it's like too lazy to say something about it.
Mm.
Like you're gonna like, oh, I'm not gonna say anything about the injustice I just saw because like then I would have to like stand up or uh, take I would have to do something that requires effort.
Well, and I think it's to add to that, it can be more than that in the way of not caring to even have the effort.
Right, right.
To like where you're like, I don't really care.
Mm-mm.
And that's where that apathy comes into play of like you're not even caring and it's beyond the laziness to not say something because of that. It's like
Mm-hmm.
can also be even further and deeper into where like you just don't care at all about anything else spiritually or people or you lack that care.
Right.
And that's where that it goes from like this lazy stage into like the apathy stage where it's like boom,
Mm-hmm.
deep into the sloth.
Which, like anything else, like apathy for other people or empathy for other people, um, and apathy is just a scale that you have to go in the middle, right? Because like if I don't care at all, I'm not going to be able to like um that's no good. Like I'm not helping anybody. I'm not doing like nothing exists anymore. And it's like, why am I alive? Where, like, all the way to the other side, if you care too much, now you're in a deficit of your own well being because you've
Yeah.
given everything to them, where now you have a deficit and now you're poor and now you don't have any like food, money, shelter, all that stuff. That's how that is like. We still have to be in the middle and have boundaries because the problem is we've went to if we go too much of being apathetic, too empathetic, um, we're gonna need like we won't have anything. Or we'll lose ourselves in it. We'll dissolve almost in it. Like you can't, there's just not enough boundaries in it. And it's a hard one because like we don't want to be selfish and we don't want to like be evil or right? Like you
But
don't want
also,
to be this other person that doesn't care.
right. But at the same time, it's like I think that the hard again, this is where these topics get so big, right? Because when we're talking in that way too, it's like hard because you have to, this is where discernment really comes in because
Hmm.
you can't care more about somebody than they care about themselves, right? But then
Right.
we do because we feel like we have the self-imposed morality to it of what we feel we have to do to be a good person.
Hmm.
But when you care too much more than somebody else cares, that's a wrong path too. And like you don't want to get to on the other end of apathetic and the way of you don't give a shit about them at all or anybody at all.
Right, right.
Because then
This is
also you're not caring for yourself at that point.
right. And or you're forcing somebody to like do something against their will, really, which this is it's a hard one because like I don't want to be I always tell people when they're dealing with something like this, especially when it's like maybe it's your child, right? And we're told that to do everything for our child. And the hard part about that is when do you stop?
Right.
Like, if your child is down a road that is very self-destructive, and you go out and you pick them up and you clean them off and you get them like rehab, and then they get better, and then they go out and they do the same cycle over and over again, right? And there's so many people that I've talked to where they get so angry about them not doing the right thing. And I'm like, I get it. But I also understand that, like, you have to do, at this point, you have to do, as a parent, you have to do whatever you're going to do unselfishly. Because at the end of the day, if it goes through and they destroy themselves, you have to be able to live with yourself with what you did, right? So, like, I'm okay with coming up and cleaning you up and doing it over and over and over and over again because the hope is one time it'll stick, right? But like addiction and all this stuff is very hard to overcome. You can't just yell at somebody and tell them to get over it, right? Like it's a whole mental thing. We don't, and we only know a little bit about this thing, that the drive and, you know, and it's trauma and all that kind of stuff. And some people aren't going to make it through the trauma. Like, unfortunately, right? You just have to do what you have to do to sleep with yourself at night. Is
Yeah.
really where I tell people is like, if it takes you doing this 17 times and if they destroy themselves at this point, at least you know you did everything possible to help. Now, the problem with that is what does that look like to you? Are you going to go bankrupt? Are you um going to make yourself sick?
Right.
Are you like, what are you? And, this is where free will also comes in. And it's like, you have to make the decision of what you're willing to give, um, to kind of come to this, what are you willing to give, I guess, at this point? Like, are you willing to sacrifice? Does that make you a better person?
Right.
Like, and this is why it's so hard to like go through this kind of thing because I don't necessarily know what the limitations of and what you're allowed to, what makes you a better person or a good person, depending on what you're willing to give to somebody that is suffering. When are you beating a dead horse? When you're enabling is another one, right? Like, I think that's a big one right now is when are you enabling it? And that's a hard thing. It's like sometimes you'd have to stop enabling for them to like do something different.
Yeah.
So this is why it's a sin, is because it's such a complicated um topic and discernment and knowing yourself and knowing, um having the intuition of even like knowing what is right even if it looks wrong.
Yes.
That's the hard part. And that's why fasting and how, living by some of these things will really help you. And I'm not all the way of like, oh, it's a sin and you're going to go to hell. I'm talking about like the the moderation of it and realizing that like having temperance and balance in your life and how that actually, helps you think better. I mean, just with the not overeating and not over consuming, like makes your brain better. Like that's amazing, right?
Yeah.
Um, let's see here. What else do we have on sloth? Um, so in the Bible it says the one who slacks in work is the brother to destruction.
Mm.
Which like if you're like, if you're slothly, then that means somebody else has to they have to put forth twice the effort.
Yeah.
Like if you're not doing something and you have a family and you have uh people living around you or whatever, you're also taking them down with you
They
because they're
can.
gonna, right, you're gonna have to like they're gonna have to work twice as hard because you're not pulling your weight kind of thing, right? So go upstairs and do the dishes is what I'm saying.
Yeah, it's like a failure in many ways. Failure in appreciation, failure
Yeah.
in respect, failure. You're failing your people and yourself.
Hmm. Hmm. That's why they say the best way to get over depression is to move.
Yeah,
And I know it's hard to move, to do things. The things in our brain are so much bigger than what they really are, is what I'm going to tell you. Because I mean, we like even to the point of sometimes I hear people, and I've said this too, is where you're like, oh, I have to go to like, and it's all in here too. The funny thing is like, but I have to tap six things to get to it. You, this is what we're saying is too much,
right,
right? Like in my brain, it's so big. It's such a mountain. I can't do that. And then you like do it and you're like, oh, that took 5 seconds.
right,
And now this my stress load is just a little bit less. And I'm like, oh, okay, that was nothing. Okay.
right.
It's this whole thing of like the thoughts in my head are like bigger. I've made them bigger than what they really are. Like, go back into the dishes things. Like if I go clean the dishes, I'm like, ugh, it's gonna take me 6 hours to do the dishes. And then you go over there and do them, and it takes you 15 minutes.
This is where diligence, right? Which is the heavenly virtue. I just have to, you're bringing it up in such a good way that this is where it's worked so well for me. And like one of the things that keeps me in line is lists. I had to find things that I like right now I have two lists going because I'm leaving tomorrow for vacation and I
Hmm.
have a list of things I have to pack so I don't forget anything, but then I also am forced to do it. And then I have a list of things that I need to do that I made the other day, things that I want to get done before I go home or leave. So when I come home, it's done and I feel
Yeah.
good about it. But it's
Right.
like getting to do that. If I make the list long, so like instead of just saying kitchen, I do the dishes, wipe the counters, do this, do that. I break everything down for myself. So then I see a list like this. And then I get so overwhelmed because I'm like, I haven't done any of that. I have to do that right now. I like basically am forcing myself to be anxious so that I use my anxiousness to get it done.
Right. And motivation.
Yeah, because if I see bathroom, laundry, cat boxes, kitchen, that's four things. Oh, that's fine. I don't need to do that. That can wait. But if I break it down, I'm like, oh, I have so much to do. I got to do it right now.
Yeah, I gotta go now. Because then you go into procrastination, right?
Oh, 100%.
If I have four things, I can go right into procrastination and be like, I have four things. And then I'm doing it while I'm putting my makeup on, while I'm supposed to be going out the door, but I'm also cleaning the dishes because I'm feeling guilty because I thought I was going to do that. And now I don't have enough time to do it.
Yes. We almost have to play our own mind games with ourselves to keep ourselves responsible. Like I tell people that a
Absolutely.
lot, like make lists, man. Lists have helped me
Mhm.
so much to get out of my slothfulness of like, well, it's my day off. I'm gonna lay in bed and watch TV all day. I
I
deserve
deserve
that.
it.
But then at the end of the day, I'm like, oh my God, I didn't get anything done and now I hate myself and I'm stressed.
Yeah, I found, it's funny because like I realized because you know how some people are like, oh, if I get up and I exercise, I hurt and I don't want to hurt. I was like, what I've learned, and maybe it's probably because of my age or whatever, but like what I've learned is you're going to hurt anyway. You're going to hurt because you sat too long, or you're going to hurt because you moved your body.
Right.
Now, I can tell you from my point of view, the hurting because I moved my body feels better than the hurt from sitting for 8 hours in the bed.
Yeah.
Because it's so funny. And I think magic has helped me with this. It's like I longed for those, like sitting in bed, and it felt so good. And it's like, oh, I can't wait to just like watch 3 movies today. But at this point, it makes my body so uncomfortable that I can't do it. It's not as enjoyable as I thought it would be.
Right. Because I feel like, especially when we're talking in this scenario too, there is nothing better than being able to lay in bed at the end of your night because you got everything that you were supposed to get done to the point that you actually get to rest and
And enjoy it.
rejuvenate. Yeah,
Yeah.
instead of beating yourself up because you didn't get anything done and now you're trying to go to bed anxious.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Oh,
And then, like, this is how insidious it is. How, like, you start off with, like, oh, this is a good thing, but then it, like, moves to not a good thing. And there's no, like, unless you're aware of it, I guess, there's no, time limit or, um, like it's something that'll snap you out of it. There's not a big, it's not like you're gonna big jolt and you're gonna be
yeah,
like, oh, I should get up. I've sat long enough. Because if I go past this time, it's gonna hurt and I'm not gonna feel good about it. Like, there's not that like button or time frame where like, hey, get the fuck up. Like you're not doing good now. You were
right.
doing good. You're not doing good.
Yep. This goes along too with I saw that they had said that busyness can also be a form of sloth. So on the opposite hand of doing nothing and rotting in bed all day, the form of busyness can be a form of sloth because it involves preoccupying yourself with worldly things to avoid spiritual or inner reflection.
Yeah. Yeah. I
And
didn't
dude,
even
when
think
I
about
say,
that.
ah, when I read that, I was like, holy fuck, well, yeah, because like you go through something, let's say a breakup. What do? You're hanging out with your
Clean.
friends, you're going to work, you're working more, you're doing this, you're doing that. You're too busy. You can't stay at home and like purge the feeling and move through the feeling and feel your feelings. Why would you do that?
No. I want
Too
to feel my
busy.
feelings.
Yeah,
Ew.
that's a form of the busyness to avoid that inner reflection or feel your feelings is a form of sloth because it's a spiritual form of sloth.
Ah, yeah.
I was like, oh,
And then the funny thing to go along with this is that if you don't feel your feelings after a breakup and you keep busy, and then, of course, you find another one and you never dealt with anything with the last one. So you just bring everything that you got from that one and you stack it up and you put it into the new relationship. You're like, good luck.
yep. Yep. It just builds and builds and builds.
Absolutely. Absolutely. You gotta feel those feelings. You gotta, and then you have to like, nurture yourself. You're not a horrible human being. No matter what you did, you're not a horrible human being. It's hard to be a human being. It's hard to like do the right thing. It's hard to like be spiritual. Like there's stuff that I want to do because I want to, if I'm supposed to help with house cleansings, I have to do a certain thing. I have to do a certain regimen. I don't want to do it because it's hard and it's going to make me feel uncomfortable.
Right.
But yeah, I want to help people with this. And if that's what my like path is, then I have to go through this uncomfortableness to do it properly, right? Like it's hard.
Yeah.
And I get it. I'm here for you.
Humaning is hard.
Humaning is hard.
Humaning.
Humaning. But I hope that as we go over these like seven deadly sins, and I think the seven deadly sins have a certain allure for me. Um, they're dramatic. They are, you know, you're going to hell. And it's
Mhm.
like there's something that's kind of nice about like seeing them because then like the more dramatic they are, the more I can like see them in my brain when I'm doing it,
Right.
when I'm falling into that trap. And I there's a certain aspect that I really like about that kind of characterization of it.
Same. I agree with you. I feel like it makes you more aware in different ways, especially breaking it down to like where we're just finding out, like even like the busyness thing
Yeah.
being a form of sloth. I mean, it makes it feel more edible in a way, I guess is what,
Yeah,
probably not the word I want, but so I'm gonna say it makes it feel more edible in the way of like it's not just dissociation and it's not
right,
just like this word or that word, it's a form of sloth. Like
right.
that helps a ton because it's like, wow, it like gives me a new meaning to it where it's more serious for me.
Yeah,
Like
yeah.
I'm more aware.
How you get more aware of it? Because, like, that's the whole thing is we're trying to be the best we can be. And we find these little antidotes in Christianity, in Islamic, in, Judaism, in Hinduism, in Buddhism, all of them. Like, all of them have these tidbits and these notions to help you, like, feel good about yourself. That's really what it is. It's not trying to tell you what to do. It's not trying to damn you to these certain places. Like it's really this antidote of life, of it being so hard. And it's supposed to be hard. Like you're supposed to like gluttony. Like if you eat too much, then I get indigestion or I get heartburn. If I eat that kind of stuff, like it makes me feel uncomfortable or my body doesn't process things as well because I'm not giving it a rest from food.
Right.
And then, your distraction away from food would be spirituality. So you going in and maybe like whatever that looks like to you, sitting and meditating through, and maybe looking at stuff that like um has nothing to do with food just to distract you to like, okay, maybe you go to help go what's I'm thinking of? Who are those people that build houses for Habitat for Humanity?
Mm.
Maybe instead of like food, you know, go and help somebody build some houses and make you feel like right now, my charity is basically doing face painting for like kids. And it makes me feel uncomfortable because I'm not a professional at this bullshit. Like I don't know how to do half the stuff that I'm like, I don't know how to do that. And sometimes it does come off wonky and you're like, well, that's all I
Wow, so
got.
they're kids and they fucking love it.
Right. They don't care. They love it. And I'm not charging for it. I'm not trying to make a dollar off of it. Like, I just want to be here to make some people happy. Like, we're not going to win an award tomorrow about, like, painting this face. But, like, if I can go there and make a couple people happy, then I did my work.
Yeah,
Then I can feel good
absolutely.
about that. Right. Uh, Yeah, we said that. If you're not gonna work, you're gonna eat. Oh, they talked about sloth kind of looking like burnout too, especially in this day and age because we work
Mm.
so much
Ah,
that that you end up just not caring and kind of going numb. And this is where you really need to find your temperance, find your balance. Like even if you gotta like take the tarot card out of temperance or even look at like a couple scales that are even, just to remind yourself of like it's about balance. This is about balance. This is drive down the middle lane
right.
and get better at it, right? Like find where your boundary is. Go across your boundary so you can find where your boundary is.
Yeah.
Eat too much and then realize that like how you feel after that and be very mindful about how you feel.
And what does the heathen motheress tell us about that? What is that called, heathens? A science experiment.
It is a science experiment. Do these experiments so you can find where your boundary is. It's hard to like, it was hard for me to figure out where boundaries are because like I'm so I care so much about your feelings that I will put myself in a deficit because I am worried about your feelings, right? So I have to go above and beyond to be like, "Ooh, that doesn't feel comfy. Let's bring that back in a little bit." And eating's the best way because it's a physical thing. If I eat too much now, I I am so uncomfortable. I'm so uncomfortable that I remembered it for the next time that I'm eating. because I'm so uncomfortable about it.
Yeah.
Like you're uncomfy. You gotta like, it's not just like, you're just like, I can't breathe.
Right.
I can't breathe. I can't breathe. I can't move. I'm gonna throw up. I can't. Like, like, so then
Yes.
dial that back down so you can be like, okay, this, I remember not taking too much and leaving some for others. And this is hard because some people have like Italian mothers that are like, eat something. You need to eat it. And it's like, yeah, but if I do, it makes me feel like, can I take it home?
Yeah.
Right? Just do that. I'll eat it later. Or if you don't really like it, take it home and throw it away. That's fine too, right? Like
Right.
you can tell them no if you want to do it that way, but sometimes it's just easier to like take it home and throw it away or give it to your cat. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, another one that I we haven't done in a long time because we haven't really been anywhere where there was a lot of homeless, but sometimes if you have leftovers from the restaurant, give it to the homeless. We've done
Mm-hmm.
that plenty
Mm-hmm.
of times. It's
Mm-hmm.
like, what are we gonna do with those leftovers? I want to, where's
It's
the
gonna
magnet?
rot. It's gonna rot in my fridge.
Yeah, and
I'll tell
even
you.
if you have a fridge.
Yeah. Um, well, sloths definitely leads you to a place where you do not care, which I think we talked about. Sadness is very deadly. It damages you and also damages everybody else in it. Right? We
Hmm.
talked about that too. Despair takes you away from life, and it takes you, if something takes you away from life, it also takes you away from, I say this loosely, it takes you away from your calling. So, like, well, if we all are theoretically, if we all believe this, that you were put here for a reason, we're going to go with that logic. So, if you were here for a reason, and you're being led down a path of like depression or despair, you are not doing what you were supposed to be doing here. And then what will kind of happen if you believe in like being recycled or, what's that called again? I forget. Reincarnation.
There it is.
I was like, what's the word? If you're reincarnated, you would almost be reincarnated again in the same life. So you would have to live this life over again because you didn't fulfill whatever your divine essence into the fabric of humanity.
Yeah.
Oh, wait, too far. Where did I go? Okay. At some point they thought that sloth, the only way to get rid of it was to exorcise the demon out. And the way they did that was either bleeding you, making you throw up, I love this one. It was powerful enemas. And I was like, what the fuck is a powerful enema?
So like you're basically just shitting everywhere?
I guess. But it's called enema. Does that mean they put something up in there and then like shot you through with stuff and then you like,
Yeah, that's what an enema is.
right? Like what? I have questions. Sir, I have questions. I also don't have questions because I don't know if I want to know.
I don't think I want to know that one either, actually.
Anyway, it was very painful, and that's why a lot of people were motivated not to be slothy because this is what they would do to you.
Yeah.
We might have to bring this back, is what I'm saying,
Oh, I
because
don't
I
mind.
feel like this would be a great motivation. I would not want to be sloth. Think about it. You'd be sitting there and you'd be like, I'm going to be lazy today. And then you're like, nope, nope,
Not me.
not me.
Nope.
Nope. They're
Mm-mm.
coming to get me. I'm not going to do it.
Hell no.
Um, so in the Bible, they called this demon noonday demon in Psalms 91. It destroys the vitality of your life. The actual demon was named Belforar. It's Belphegor.
Um, Belphegor
Yes,
pronunciation.
my poor
Holy.
my poor kitty wants in, and all I can hear is
Yes, it's Belphegor.
Belphegor. That cat, I swear to God. Um, the demon, let's see here. This demon lures a sullenness, a sense of sullenness to a sense of despair, to a sense of meaninglessness. Once the sinner accepts the demon, the invitation lets Hellas pressure took up residence inside their body and let the idea that in order to be cured needed to be exercised. So it would again, this demon would come in and like it would be subtly and you allow it in at some point and then they would exercise you. They would have to, it's just a slippery slope, folks. I don't know what to tell you. Procrastination. Procrastination. This demon wants to make sure that you do nothing with your life.
Literally not a damn thing.
Not a damn thing.
Literally says online that he tempts you through laziness.
Oh, such a temptress.
Hmm.
Um, so sloth in divine comedy is level 4 of hell. And this is where so sloth is in the same pool as wrath, but wrath are the people and anger, the people that are trying to get out of the pool and or the swamp and they're tearing each other apart to get out. Like it's just an endless um movement. Where slothness is like they're in the bog and they're not doing anything to save themselves. They literally are just sitting there
Hmm.
and they're like, that's it. That's my interpretation of sloth. Also, at the end of this, like the one thing that I noticed is sloth can really lead you to suicide. And in the church, I think suicide is the ultimate sin because it's murder. And I didn't really realize it as murder, actually. I don't know. I still have to like I think to the point of suicide was one of those things where you weren't even allowed to be buried in the consecrated ground because you were literally in hell, right?
Hmm.
Um, the jury is still out in my head about suicide. I am all for at the end of life stuff. Like either you have a disease that you had gotten and it's terminal and there's no fixing it and uh like I agree with that. I don't know where it lands on itself with a because it's such a taboo topic, we don't have I feel like we don't have enough people actually studying this to come up with um how we feel
Hmm.
about it or what the right words are to say about it, right? Like we just automatically say it's bad and then shut the door.
Yeah.
Right. We don't look at it because it's too uncomfortable to look at, right? Not only that, I think there's an idea or a thought form of like if I say it, it's going to happen. Like almost like it is like this wielding creature that's just lurking on the outside that's like, ha ha ha, I'm going to come get you. If you
Like
just say my name, like it's Beetlejuice, right?
Beetlejuice. Sorry, you can't help myself.
Don't say it. He's going to come. So it's one of those things where I haven't necessarily I've heard ideas about suicide, like if you commit suicide, you go to I think Rocky said this to us, that you would go to a place where they would heal you and then send you back through the karmic wheel. Like there was like a special hospital or something like that.
Hmm.
Um, I think a lot of ghosts stay on this plane because of suicide, because they're afraid of, what they're meeting in the afterlife because they did something bad. And I really have a hard time with that. Because if you're even going to like, these are my questions. Like, if you're going to despair in this lifetime so much so that you have to end yourself, then what good is it for that soul to stay here? You're not fixing anything. There's no like compassion in that. And I just believe that, like, because being human is hard already, that we can't be necessarily tormented in the afterlife too. That just seems like it doesn't seem right to me. But I also don't have an answer either. So that's where I'm at on it.
Yeah, I could agree with that though.
Right. Like it's one of those things where I'm like, well, I don't know. Cause like I don't I think it's really one of those things where like they make it so bad so people don't do it because they think if they say that it's not that bad, that everybody's going to do it. There's like that kind of thought to it.
Right.
When, even in the medical part, like your body wants to stay alive. Like for, you had told me that it to go against your will, your ego.
Your ego, exactly.
Yeah, because your ego is to keep you alive.
Hmm.
So,
Can't have a true death of the ego in every meaning of the words because
right.
you literally that is your will to live. You go, yeah, you go against it. And to me, there's a part now this is gonna sound a little fucky, but if you're sticking with us on this, it won't. That takes a lot of strength in my mind to be able to go against your own will to live because we all have it.
Mm-hmm.
To be comfortable with like going against your will to live, that to me is a different kind of strength and a different version of it that I'm like, I can't even understand it.
Right. Right.
It's a big topic.
I know. I guess we didn't. Well, here we are.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I mean, well, it's not a bad thing. I'm just saying that is a big
No.
topic because it's a hard one that, I have a lot of formed opinions on it as well, where it's like they're not formed enough to be consecrated and put in fucking concrete by any means, but I
No.
have some formed opinions, from my own experiences where I don't think that it's this horrible thing because I can't imagine it to be because if you have somebody that you love that's passed away in that way or chosen to
Mm-hmm.
take their own life, how do you think it was such a bad thing that they're the worst person in the world when you truly did love them?
Mm-hmm.
So it's like hard because yeah, like the whole idea that you need to pray for forgiveness to have them hopefully be even a whisper of acknowledgement to go to heaven is like a little hard for me because of that. Because it's like I love this person so much and they were so loved and they were not a bad person and life got too hard for them. And that's, to me, it sucks. It fucking sucks, but it's understandable in the way of like, they didn't go and kill somebody and then kill themselves. Not that, again, that's neither here nor there, but
Yeah.
for this specific scenario, it's like, they were a very good person. They just really lived a hard life and things were really hard for
Right.
them a lot of the time. And like, how can a person like that who gave so much go to this place where they're going to be tortured for all of eternity? It just
Right.
doesn't compute to me.
No, it's never really sat well with me as well. I mean, even in talking about Judas, like the ultimate like guy who like, and I always had this question of like, but if he didn't do what he did, if he didn't sell out Jesus, right?
Hmm.
Jesus wouldn't have been as popular as he was.
He probably wouldn't have been able to do what he needed to do,
Absolutely. You had to have a person to do it because he couldn't do it himself,
right?
right? He had to have somebody, be able to do it for him, to be the bad guy, to do what needed to be done so that the prophecy was fulfilled.
Right.
And then to have him be tortured in hell for all eternity, I was like, but he there was a reason. There was a purpose. This had to go down. They foretold it. They knew it was going to happen, that he was going to be crucified and be put on the cross and die. Like
Right.
that is it. It had to happen. So if it had to happen and we deem this bad and wrong, I don't understand why we deem this bad and wrong and why this person was, the ultimate. Like I get he betrayed him. I get that. But like also he had to. So how do you um say it was wrong?
Hmm.
It's one of those things where I'm just like, I don't know, that's where I'm at.
Yep.
That's where I'm at. I don't, it's not concluded. It's in pencil. I can change it, right?
Right.
Like, but in my notebook, that's where I'm at. I just don't understand why, if something needs to be done, bad or good, for the story to play out, then technically it was not bad. I don't know.
Moral of the TED Talk we're on right now is we
All
have
right.
lots of questions when we die.
Absolutely. Lots of questions.
Lots of questions.
But that's sloth. So sloth, it's one of the hardest ones. Or I don't know if it's the hardest one because they all are pretty hard, right?
I'd
Um,
say it's probably one of the most misunderstood in the way of like, it's not just laziness, it goes so much deeper than that, right? Like, in
mhm.
laziness is like that little rock that's going to slip you down that slope that you slip on. You slip on it, and then guess what? You're falling.
You're fallen. You're all the way down. Yeah.
Yeah.
I do think that sloth is a slippery slope and
Hmm.
it doesn't happen all at once.
Yep.
It's more like you don't realize that you're drowning until you're drowning.
Right.
Hmm.
Exactly. It's like you think you're good, and then all of a sudden you're like, I can't breathe.
Yeah, I think this is probably goes hand in hand with pride because you don't want to necessarily acknowledge that you are in trouble per se.
Which, speaking of, at the end of all this, the way that they say, I now understand but so wholeheartedly when they say that pride is like the biggest one because it literally goes hand in hand with every single one of these.
It blinds you
Yes.
from all of them.
Mm-hmm.
Like if I don't want to work out today, I can come up with all of the reasons.
Oh, yeah.
Or I can be like, well,
You feel
I don't
so
need to.
just in it.
Yeah, justified in it.
Mm-hmm.
It's a hard one. Pride's a hard one. I mean, it just is like one of those blinder things that you can't see what you're doing until you're doing it.
Right.
And it always goes back to me, and I don't know why. I think I associate this with pride, is that the road to hell is paved with good intentions.
Yep.
Because and this is where it goes to the thing of like, we might think we know a lot, right? And we think we know what good and evil is. And we have a good like concept of it, right? It's only in the gray area where it's really good to be good and evil when it's out here. Like, okay, murder is bad, but unless you're defending yourself, right? Then you're not supposed to murder because then you murder you. And then, so that's why it's super hard to like, there's no like good or evil. I mean, there is, but like, it's so gray scale. It all
Yes.
depends on your intentions on what you're doing.
Mhm.
But you also like you might be thinking that you're doing this for the good of all, but you're really doing it for your own ego. And that's where pride like steps in and is like, yes, you're doing this. You're doing this for the good of everybody. You are the savior of the world.
You are
And
the new
like,
Messiah.
absolutely. And like we did a whole thing on cults and
I was
we've
gonna say,
seen that.
start a cult.
You're doing this for the good of the people. It's for their own benefit.
You should have people following you.
Right. So, I employ you to, if you want to research these for yourself, find your way out of the brimstone and and all that, and just realize it where it sits in your life, because that's really what it is. It's just sitting, it does sit in your life. And the more you acknowledge it, the more you can either defeat it or live coexist, you can coexist with it.
Right. Beautifully said. I,
That's
I
good.
I don't have like anything else to say to that because that was great.
That's where we're at.
Yeah, that was good.
Hmm.
Here, friend. Um, well, okay, our next episode is gonna be on aliens.
Aliens. I'm
Yeah.
so
We're
excited.
taking a hard switch here because we're getting towards the end of the year and we have four fun topics before our last episode that I'm really excited about because they're different than what we've done for most of the year. We've had some very big topics that have taken us like
Hmm.
multiple episodes. So, I mean, we're gonna go over an end of the year recap, but just like fully looking over how these big topics we took, I forgot we did the Black Madonna.
Oh, I forgot about that too.
And I'm like,
Although I
oh,
went out and bought one too.
yeah. I'm like, huh, how funny. But yeah, we'll be talking about aliens next week. I don't know what that looks like yet. We're gonna form it as it comes. So
I know nothing about aliens except for I think they're fairies sometimes, because that's what John Michael Greer said. Actually, he does have stuff in his monster book about aliens.
yay.
And I think he is the one that like thinks it's or had it like coexist with fairies.
I'm excited to get into that topic because I feel like that's
Mm-hmm.
one I don't know enough about either. And I would
Mm-mm.
like to just have more thoughts at least.
Yeah, a more constructive thought. Yeah. Like
Yes.
something that's a little more like, because like, I don't know. The only thing I know about aliens is literally that they abduct you, they do experiments on you, um, and anal probing. That's all I know. That's all.
That's so funny.
That's all I know about aliens. And I do know that I do believe that the Mothman prophecies, that guy Ingrid Cold is an alien
Hmm.
that comes from a different planet and stuff.
Mm, I think our next episode is going to be very interesting. Very
Hmm.
interesting.
Very interesting.
Well, do you have anything else for the peoples?
No, that's it. Yep.
All right, peeps, well, enjoy your week and we'll see you in the next episode.
Bye.